First, he says, is the absurdity of pursuing pleasure and power. The absurdity of pursuing pleasure and power. I said in my heart, chapter 2, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. Treat yourself. That's what I said to my heart. I explore with my mind a pool of wine on my body, and my mind still guiding me with wisdom. In other words, Solomon is like the sophomore who wakes up from a hangover with a missing tooth and a facial tattoo, and he has no idea how he got there. But then he finds a detailed notebook that he kept while in his drunken state. Verse 10, whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure. Do you all remember all that Solomon had? Everything in the man's house was made out of gold. He was multi-talented, well-read. His kingdom was at peace and his power was unchallenged. He ate great food and had 1,000 different sexual options every night. In addition to all of this, he wrote New York Times best-selling books on every subject. He was one of the most popular songwriters of his day. He built the most impressive temple the world had ever seen, and he led Israel in a national spiritual revival. That's not a bad list of life accomplishments. Verse 11. Then I considered all that my hands had done and the toil I'd expended in doing it. And behold, it was all hevel. It was useless. It was like striving after the wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. 3 ways that Solomon says the pursuit of worldly pleasure and security are absurd. First of all, he says they are, if you take a note, letter A, they're unfulfilling. He said, I thought I would feel complete when I had an excess of pleasure and power, but I didn't. Here's the thing, listen. Multiple times throughout this book, Solomon is going to say, correctly, money is good, love and sex are good, health is good. These are gifts of God to enjoy. But if they become the primary place that you seek happiness, you will find them empty. You will find them hevel. I read a stat, for example, recently that showed that people who have their basic needs met financially and have a little bit of money in savings are indeed happier than those who live below the poverty line. The study showed, however, that after your basic needs are met and after you have a small amount of savings, I think the number that they used was a combined household income of $75,000 a year. After that, there is literally no correlation between increased net worth and happiness. In fact, it actually reverses. And you start to become less happy the more you make. We also know that suicide rates and depression are highest among the rich, proving that increases in money doesn't lead to increased happiness. That's exactly what Solomon is saying. It is good to have your needs met. Money and family are good. But if they are your primary source of life, they're going to leave you empty. You see, here's a truth that most people don't understand, that the editor of Ecclesiastes explains, right? Here's the truth. There are 2 different gifts that God gives. One is money and marriage and family. The other is the ability to enjoy those things. And those are 2 different gifts. And they have to be sought in 2 different ways. Ecclesiastes 6:1. Here's a tragedy I've observed under the sun. It weighs heavily on humanity. God gives of one person riches, wealth, and honor so that he lacks nothing of all he desires for himself. But God doesn't give the second gift to that person. He doesn't give them the ability to enjoy them for a happy life, see? You need to not only have money and family and love, you need the ability to enjoy the things God gives you, and that is a separate gift of God that you got to seek in a different way. I was reminded here of what the great theologian Drake said in an interview. He said there was a point where I felt like I needed to keep the company of a different woman every night. I was trying to fill a void. But in those moments after sex, I'd know it wasn't working. These quiet moments are the realest moments a man will ever have in his life. The next day, I'd convinced myself to do it again, but during that time, I knew it was not working. That's the same thing the teacher in the book of Ecclesiastes is saying. Pleasure and power, if sought as the primary source of happiness, are unfulfilling by themselves. And so he says they're absurd.